The A7R5 IBIS is almost good enough to replace your gimbal. What? Hey, my name is Matt Johnson, and I recently got back from New York City where I had the opportunity to use the Sony a7R5 for a day. And in addition to doing a low light test, which I will link to here up in the corner and down in the description for you to watch, I was pretty impressed by the in-body image stabilization performance of the a7R5, and we totally need to talk about it. Incidentally, if you want to download some straight out of camera video clips that I filmed with the a7R5, you can also download those for free in the description down below. Anyways, Sony has made a big deal about improving the active image stabilization mode of the a7R5, claiming that it now offers up to 8 stops of image stabilization performance. This is big, but for context, up until this point, Sony's image stabilization has kind of been the laughing stock from Panasonic filmmakers who have rather legendary image stabilization performance with the GH5, GH6, and S5, etc. But I think that Sony might be finally catching up. I took the a7R5 out on the streets of New York City at twilight with the lovely and oh so talented Taylor Jackson to not only push the high ISO capabilities of this camera, but also test out the new IBIS system. Armed with the a7R5 filming in a mix of 8K and 4K and S-Log3 with active IBIS enabled, as well as using a Sony 24-70 Mark II lens that Sony loaned me, I wanted to see if it was possible for this camera's new stabilization system to replace my gimbal. Of course, keep in mind that I'm already working at a disadvantage, because while Sony claims that the a7R5 offers great in-body image stabilization, if you use a lens with optical image stabilization built in, that stabilization should be even better. Unfortunately though, the 24-70 Mark II does not have optical image stabilization built in. So, please take all of this test with a grain of salt and with the knowledge that the image stabilization should actually be even better than what you are seeing. The good news is that I'm planning on creating a full review of the a7R5 where I plan on getting my hands on a Sony lens with optical image stabilization built in so I can accurately test this feature even more. Anyways, on to the testing. I first chose to test this camera while recording in 8K at 24 FPS, which also happens to disable active image stabilization mode too, so I was already setting myself up for a bad time. I first started trying to walk normally. I didn't try to roll step or ninja walk or smooth out my steps at all. No, I wanted to see how this camera performed if I was walking perfectly normally like I usually would. In short, it was an unmitigated disaster. Between the IBIS desperately trying to keep up with my arm movements, the heavy steps that I was taking, and the rolling shutter ripple from the camera in 8K, it was basically unusable. But then, for my next test, I opted to smooth out my shots. I called upon my near decade of experience walking with a glide cam as well as other gimbals, and I tried to walk as smoothly and as steadily as I could while also attempting to minimize any camera shake. Suddenly, things were looking a lot better. What was this feeling I was experiencing while filming? Was it cinematic inspiration? No, it was actually the slices of pizza that I consumed for lunch, but it was at this point that I was really impressed, because playing back this footage on the small camera screen, it looked very smooth. Of course, now viewing the footage on a bigger screen like you most likely are, the footage definitely has more noticeable shake, but honestly, it isn't that bad. Let's try to smooth things out even more by adding some stabilization in post. And as you can see, this is certainly looking really good. Quite usable, in my opinion. Continuing my testing then, I switched to filming in 4K at 24 FPS with active stabilization mode enabled, which was a big help. Once again, I started by walking normally with the camera, and honestly, with active IBIS, I was pleasantly surprised. Is this footage perfect? No, but it does provide hope that walking with a smoother step may make things smooth enough. Cue me ninja walking again as smooth as I could while holding the camera steady, and suddenly, this IBIS is looking really impressive. It definitely appears to be improved over previous Sony cameras, and there's also dramatically less shutter in 4K than in 8K, which helps out a ton. Finally, throwing some stabilization on in post, this smooths out the footage even more. You could totally use this footage in a video. Plus, keep in mind that this is at 24 FPS, and if you were to film in 60 or 120 frames per second, it would be even smoother. So, here's my conclusion. keeping in mind that I was not using a lens with image stabilization, so things could be potentially even smoother, and especially considering how good image stabilization is getting in video editing software now, I do think that we're getting close to filmmakers being able to get rid of their gimbals. At least for some shots. If you're trying to get a smooth and slow shot where you are walking slowly and you're on relatively smooth ground where you don't need to watch your footing too much as you walk, I think that it's entirely feasible now for you to be able to get gimbal-like movements with the A7R V. Of course, though, once you decide you need to move faster or run, even the best in-body image stabilization is going to fail you and you're going to need to invest in a gimbal. But as someone that loves to film as lightweight and compact as possible on a wedding day, or any other video shoot for that matter, the thought of being able to walk around handheld without a ton of gear is really compelling to me. I can't wait for Sony to include this improved image stabilization in future cameras like the a7S4, whenever the heck that comes out, and I'm really glad to see Sony competing with the likes of Panasonic with better image stabilization. With that, thank you so much for watching. Remember, those straight out of camera Sony video clips are down below if you want to check them out completely for free, and if you liked how the colors look in this video, I colored this video with my color presets, Who is Matt Lutz, which you can get down in the description as well. Also, please subscribe if you want to see the A7R V review whenever it releases. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.